Baki Hanma is a 13-year-old boy who is currently engaged in a battle against 100 criminals. His father, Yujiro Hanma, is the strongest man on earth, and Baki Hanma is determined to become as strong as his father at any cost. His mother, who is deeply in love with Yujiro, assists Baki Hanma in his training, although she does not have any affection for him. She is the one who hired the criminals to fight Baki Hanma. Despite his strength, Baki Hanma is able to defeat only a few of them. The fight is being observed by Triagawa, Emi's right-hand man, who was responsible for arranging the match. In the future, Baki Hanma will also face off against Hanayama, the leader of a mafia group, who is already renowned as one of the strongest people in town for over 15 years. Baki easily defeats all of his opponents, but he is unable to shake the belief that Yujiro is the only person who is stronger than him. In order to have a chance at defeating his father, Baki agrees to fight against him. However, Bucky's training in a special laboratory does not appear to be enough to make him as strong as his father. As a result, he decides to abandon this training and search for a different way to increase his strength. As Baki contemplates his next steps, he encounters Yuri Tchaikovsky, a professional boxer who is the ultimate champion in his weight class, in the park. Yuri has become so dominant that he struggles to find opponents who are willing to spar with him. Baki decides to challenge Yuri to a fight, but he is swiftly defeated with just one punch from the boxer. This is Bucky's first defeat, and he returns home in tears. Baki decides to pursue the same path as his father and travels to the mountains. There, he reunites with Ando, an old friend of the Hanma family who used to train with Yujiro in these mountains. Baki tells Ando that he has come to defeat Ashazara, a 3-meter-tall demon who is believed to be the king of the mountain. It is worth noting that Yujiro has already killed one of these demons in the past. When Baki confronts Ashazar, he experiences a strong feeling of fear. Anda tries to help Baki, but the monster severely wounds him. Only the use of fire is able to drive the monster away. Anda's wound is so severe that an ambulance has to be called to take him to the hospital by helicopter. Baki realizes that he needs to push beyond the limits of human strength in order to defeat the monster. To do this, he jumps off a cliff, tucking into a crouched position as he falls. Baki feels as if time has slowed down, allowing him to avoid injury as he falls safely into the water. Now stronger, he heads back to face Ashazar again, and is even able to injure the monster by taking out one of its eyes during their battle. Both Baki and Ashazar are badly wounded as they fight ferociously. Ando, who has been released from the hospital, tries to kill the monster with his shotgun, but Baki stops him. Baki explains that he and Ashazar both respect each other as worthy adversaries, despite their injuries. Despite defeating Ashazar, Baki takes no pleasure in the victory, as he inflicted serious injuries on the monster and even took out one of its eyes. Ashazar was only defending itself, so Baki feels guilty and goes to the monster's lair to apologize. He offers Ashazar the head of his wife, who was killed by Yujiro, as a gesture of remorse, and in return, Ashazar gives Baki the fang he lost during their fight. Baki goes to his mother's house, where she shows him a video of Tchaikovsky's recent fight for the middleweight championship. His mother tries to bribe Tchaikovsky with 100 million yen to fight her son, but Tchaikovsky is not interested in the money and declines the offer. After winning the middleweight title, Tchaikovsky aims to win the heavyweight title as well and has gained 15 pounds in 2 months in order to do so. However, Baki does not approve of Tchaikovsky's decision, as he thinks the old Tchaikovsky was faster and more dangerous. Baki goes to the gym where Tchaikovsky trains and tells him that he does not view boxing as a perfect sport or a martial art, but still respects Tchaikovsky and will support him until the end. These words deeply hurt Tchaikovsky and the others present in the room. The group tries to demonstrate to Baki the power of a boxer by hitting peers, but Baki easily destroys the peers with one punch, showcasing his own strength as the strongest person in the room at the 13 years old. The day of Tchaikovsky's fight for the heavyweight title arrives. But before he can enter the ring, Hanma, the strong mob boss, attacks Tchaikovsky's team. Hanma grabs Tchaikovsky's arm and crushes his joints, causing his tendons and veins to burst. Despite his injuries, Tchaikovsky continues to fight, as it is the way of a warrior to never give up. However, Hanma ultimately defeats Tchaikovsky, and he is taken to the hospital. Baki hears about the incident and goes to seek revenge on Hanma, not noticing the guards on his way. He knocks down Hanma with his first punch. No one has ever managed to land such a powerful blow before, but their fight is interrupted by the police, who were called to the scene. Baki tells Hanma that he is ready to fight him anytime, which enrages Hanma and causes him to destroy his car in a fit of anger. Baki later visits Tchaikovsky in the hospital and tells him about his encounter with Hanma, admitting that he was scared but still eager to face him again. Baki realizes that Hanma, the mob boss, can attack him at any moment, and that was exactly what happened at the mall. Hanma took Baki by surprise and was able to beat him up, at one point even throwing him out of a window in an attempt to kill him. However, Baki manages to grab a rope and climbs back up, beating Hanma in retaliation. He then strips off all of his clothes and shows everyone the tattoo on his back that all the men in his clan get, in memory of the wandering man who protected his ancestor and thereby saved the clan. They begin to fight, and Hanma uses the same technique he used on Tchaikovsky. But, surprisingly, Baki could move his fingers, which meant his tendons were intact. They fought as equals, exchanging strong punches and holds. When it seemed that one of them won, the other got up and continued the fight. At one point, Baki thought he had won, but Hanma dealt him a crushing blow. After that blow, just when it seemed to everyone that it was over, Hanma falls to the floor without strength. But at this point, Baki gathers the last of his strength and waddles up to the mob boss. They acknowledge each other and thank each other for the fight, but suddenly Eugene, with whom Hanma had dreamed of fighting, bursts in. However, it turns out that the difference in strength is too great. Eugene takes Hanma out with flying colors. Despite being exhausted from his battle with Baki, Hanma stands no chance against Eugene. With one swift blow, Eugene knocks out Baki and then heads to confront Akezawa, criticizing her for failing to make Baki a great fighter within the past 3 years. He declares that he wants to personally train and test his son, and to further motivate Baki, he kills Akezawa, whom Baki respects. He brought him the head of this monster and told him that he was coming to fight him in a month, and he wants him to be as motivated as possible for this fight. Because if he disappoints his father, Eugene will cut him down too. Baki ate Azar's teeth and then met Straighten's friend Eugene. He told Baki that if he didn't want to be destroyed by his father, he needed to train. Straighten told about a group of mercenaries in Hokkaido, who see everything as a battlefield, and for Baki to become stronger, he must defeat them. Without realizing it himself, Straighten sends him on a suicide mission. It turns out that among these mercenaries there is a certain Gaia, who is considered a god of war. And only Eugene is able to compete with him. When the mercenaries landed from the parachute, they immediately grabbed him, but decided not to kill him yet. They tied him up and left him by the tree. Freeing himself, Baki begins to hunt them down one by one and fight them. At the same time, learning something new from each fighter, he has massacred them all. But suddenly the strongest of the mercenaries starts screaming wildly. It turns out that there are 2 personalities in him. The first, Namura, the personality of an ordinary soldier, and the second the god of war, which was revealed to him after one incident. During one operation, he was captured and sentenced to be shot. As dozens of soldiers shot off with their rifles, his adrenaline kicked in. Guy was not killed because his comrades came to him in time. But after that moment, all his hair fell out, and on top of that, he learned to control the adrenaline release, thanks to which his body is in perfect shape, even though he doesn't train at all. They started to fight, but Baki couldn't land a single blow. All because during the adrenaline rush, Guy begins to completely read his opponent's actions. Guy beats him up, delivering the hardest blows, and after he hurls him to the bottom of the river. Everyone thought Baki was dead, but thanks to endorphins, he comes to his senses. Endorphins are produced when the pain becomes unbearable. Thanks to them, a person stops feeling pain and feels an incredible burst of strength. They start fighting again, but their fight is stopped by Guy. He scolds Baki for exhausting his body so much. He says that his arms and legs don't listen to him at all because he didn't worry about them in any way. After this, Gaia is about to finish him off, but Bucky's body starts beating on its own. Because of this much training, his instincts have been perfected, and because of this, he defeats him, squeezing his carotid artery and causing him to lose consciousness. When Gaia wakes up, he admits defeat and calls Baki for a meal as a token of friendship. Their battle was reported to Eugene, saying that Baki had defeated the god of war himself, whom only Eugene was supposed to be able to match, to which he replied that Gaia was weak and was no match for him. And to prove it, he headed to the Prime Minister, informing him in advance that he was going to kill him. There he meets dozens of armed soldiers. He walked through them as if he just didn't notice them. When he got to the Prime Minister, he said he had lousy security, after which he fled out the window. Eugene met up with Akezawa. She tried to get close to him, but he rejected her and added that if Baki disappointed him, he would wipe Akezawa's feet. Baki came to his distraught mother, and she began to beat him for not being as strong as his father since he was 13. He asked her if she would love her son if he could beat Eugene. But she only called him an idiot, after which she bit him and ran away. Desperate, Baki runs into 3 bullies who start beating him up. But at that moment, Emi Akezawa comes to him. He supported him and said he was even jealous. After all, his mother had just recently died. She was ill with cancer, and even with a great desire would not be able to bite her son. After the conversation, Baki began to prepare for the fight, which was to take place at midnight, and before that he decided to warm up for a full 12 hours. He was helped in this by Tchaikovsky and Emi Akezawa, who came to support Baki in his battle with his father. They started sparring, but during that time, Baki got a lot stronger and just playfully dealt with the head of the mafia and the boxing champion. Also, the mercenaries came to him, but without his leader, all because he was assigned a mission. He was to teach Eugene a lesson for what he had done to the Prime Minister. But, as expected, he was brutally beaten. Eugene arrived at the scene of the fight, and with him was Akezawa. Baki starts punching his father with all his might, but instead of fighting him, Eugene approaches those who have come to support Baki. He said he was grateful to them for making his son a strong man. He also added that the Akezawa did not let him down and almost lived up to his expectations. Eugene then decides to fight his son. But after 2 punches, Baki faints. It would seem that the fight is over, but Eugene decides to finish him off and starts beating his son's unconscious body. The mother decides to stand up for her son. But Eugene doesn't appreciate such a gesture, so he gives her a deadly hug. He doesn't stop there and begins beating everyone on the battlefield. Having lost his mother, Baki decides that he must become strong enough to beat Eugene with his bare hands. And to do this, he leaves Japan for 2 years to come back even stronger. He spends all this time in Brazil, defeating one fighter after another. There he heard that there are underground fights in Tokyo, where the strongest fighters from all over the world gather. But to get there, he had to meet the organizers of those fights. They knew who Baki was and whose son he was, so they were very eager for him to perform. Baki rented a room from a woman whose husband was also in the underground fights, and after one of the fights he came home and died with a smile on his face. She also has a daughter, Kaozu, with whom Baki goes to school, and she has no idea what he does because Baki keeps everything carefully hidden. Namely, that during those 3 years while he was renting a room from this woman, he became an underground fighting champion. Next, Tokugawa, the master and head of the Dappu Karate School, comes to him and asks him to invite his best student, Kato, to the underground fights. He used to be engaged in karate school, but he got bored and went to work as a bodyguard. But he got bored there too, so he came back to find strong opponents. That's why he really wants to fight Baki, who is about to fight Kozyu, who is known for his fighting style. The thing is, his body parts are so sharp that he can punch like a knife, and he can tear through his opponent's nerves. And that is exactly what he did to Baki, thereby wounding his right arm. But despite this wound, Baki continued to fight with dignity. And then Kozyu severed his nerve, responsible for the vision of his right eye. After this wound, Baki began to miss his punches hard. But when Kozyu decided to do the same to his left eye, Baki caught him with a power move and threatened to break his arm if Kozyu didn't give up. But he had no intention of losing, so he asked Baki to break his arm. To avoid ruining his opponent's career, Baki decides to just knock him out, thus winning the fight. No one at school knows about Bucky's exploits, so bullies start scamming him for money, but Kozyu stands up for him. But that didn't help, and they had to flee from there. In the evening, when she was with her friend in the park, she was accosted by these hooligans. They wanted her to pay them for preventing her from scamming Baki for money, but with the help of her friend, Baki finds them, and he breaks everyone's brushes and saves Kozyu. Baki is the champion and many fighters want to fight him, but his next opponent is determined by Tokugawa. So some of them decide to fight each other for the right to fight Baki. But at that moment, Toba comes to them and scatters everyone like children. Toba is Bucky's next opponent. He has been wrestling for 30 years and considers his fight with Baki to be his last. Therefore, he is determined to win, believing that a wrestler has no right to lose. Toba initially overpowers Baki, tossing him around like a baby. However, Baki fights back with precise punches and eventually knocks Toba to the ground. But he got up and continued the fight, using wrestling techniques. And to win, he's going to use his crowning move. But the problem is, the years are taking their toll. Toba has a bad knee, and that move would hurt him. When he tries to use it, Baki frees himself in midair. And when Toba landed, he hurt his knee, causing his punches to be incredibly weak. Baki started backing him up and out of respect for him hit his sore knee, showing that he fought him to the best of his ability. The audience was thrilled by the fight and congratulated both fighters. However, Yujin unexpectedly entered the ring and knocked Baki out with a single punch. Seeing an opportunity, Tapu confronted Yujin, seeking revenge for a head injury he had sustained at Yujin's hands. Baki attempted to discourage Tapu from fighting, warning that Yujin could potentially harm him. Nevertheless, Tapu was determined to face Yujin in the ring and reassured Baki that he would do his best. The match between Tapu and Yujin will take place prior to the scheduled bout between Baki and Kura. This doctor, who is Kozuya's older brother, is an expert in anatomy and has therefore been able to achieve physical perfection. Before the match between Yujin and Tapu, Baki was extremely anxious and unable to properly warm up and prepare for the fight. His nerves were justified, as Tapu is a formidable opponent who is capable of putting up a strong fight. However, Yujin holds the title of the strongest man on Earth for a reason and is expected to perform well in the match. During the fight, Yujin allowed Tapu to throw punches, but as soon as he saw Baki, he decided to go all out and ultimately kill Tapu. A medic rushed to Tapu's side and attempted to resuscitate him, but was unsuccessful. Kurika, renowned as the best doctor in Japan, arrived on the scene and through a lecture on the value of life and direct heart massage, was able to save Tapu from death. Kurika noticed that Baki was becoming panicked by the events and realized that he would not be able to fight at his full potential. Despite this, Kurika still intends to kill him. To everyone, it seemed that Baki was not properly warmed up and his muscles were cold. However, before the fight, one of Kurika's patients came to see him and accused the doctor of conducting experiments on her and other patients, using their money for the surgery but failing to save them, leaving them permanently disabled. Baki believed her and was greatly motivated by her words. This motivated Baki to start attacking the doctor from the very beginning of the fight. However, Kurika, who is an expert in anatomy and able to deliver powerful blows, was able to knock Baki unconscious. The other fighters, who had always wanted to fight Baki, supported him throughout the match. They empathized with Baki when he was struggling and celebrated his victories. Kurika seizes the opportunity to challenge Eugene to a fight. However, as he enters the ring, Baki wakes up and asks his father to leave. Eugene boasts that he can defeat Kurika with just one punch, and with one punch, Baki tears open Kurika's stomach and emerges victorious. Kurika requires an emergency blood transfusion due to his wounds, and the invalid who had visited Baki before the fight decides to assist him. The invalid rises from her wheelchair and approaches the doctor, offering to help him. After winning the fight, Baki decides that he needs to train and retreats to the mountains to meditate. And what happens next, we'll find out in the next video. If you liked it, support us with a subscription and likes, as Baki was supported by his friends during the fights. Thank you.